Hi, I'm Stevie Fernandez.
And I'm Trish Whitmer. Nice to see you back with us for this week's Explore Tulsa. Now, Stevie, do you always remember to set your clocks forward for daylight savings time?
These days, our phones just do it automatically. But did you know that golf is the real reason it's so important to the economy that we have an extra hour of daylight?
Well, yeah, golf and everything else we do outside. Having more daylight helps the retail industry and sports industry make billions each year.
But when the lights go out, it's time for some sweet sounds that come from the music like Brian creates at Uncle Brown's Sound Recording Studio.
You take sound and records for granted, I think. I grew up in Franklin, Massachusetts, which is about 45 minutes west of Boston, but spent a lot of time in Boston. I was in rock bands for a long time. I loved jazz records when I was growing up. And then the 70s came, the 70s hit, late 70s, and just punk music for some reason. I just fell in love, Music was just very important to me. I was a real kind of a nerdy electronics geek when I was a kid, and used to rebuild tape decks and, would sit on the floor of my bedroom thinking that I've invented multi-track recording. And I've told many people until my dad walked in and saw things that, me doing all this stuff with tape and stuff. And he's like, that's already been invented. And the process just amazed me. So that's what I went in real kind of fangs out. I gotta learn how to do this stuff, and studied about it and started building my own mixers and started recording everything I could when I was younger. And then when I became a musician, my parents were very, they wanted my sister to be the musician and just, bought her every instrument in the world. And then when she didn't want to do anything with them, she put them in the corner. I would, after school, would just start picking them up and just messing around with all this stuff. And, pretty soon I'd get into one band, two bands. At times I was in 3 or 4 bands. And then I would start recording those bands. I love to play music, and I've always loved to play music. But I've always had an ear for what's going on, the arrangements and how they can be better. And I always listened to the sound as more as just concentrated on playing. And I love technology because my career always followed technology, being in IT and engineering. But I always find myself going back and saying, wow, they did some great stuff back then. And the core of it is, a person performs their music, somebody watches them perform, and ultimately they clap because they love what they heard. And they used to go home and say, wow, I'd love to hear that again every day. I love that song. And moreover, if they put that record on and they hear exactly what they heard, that's fine for most listeners, And I think music has graduated into this point where it's almost like, let's put this big production out first. And then when somebody goes to the live show, the lights come up and they go, and if they don't hear that big production, they're either going to be, number one, disappointed because they can't understand why that person doesn't sound like that, or the record label is going to have to spend $4 million to make them sound like that. And that's fine. But the best shows I've ever been to were the ones that I've seen somebody on stage with an acoustic guitar or a band, and they sound exactly like they did on the record, and there's no flash about it. I've never thought I've had a sound. My whole thing is I'll get people in, I'll record the basic core of what they do. They leave, and sometimes I'll be up here at 3 o'clock in the morning and just listen to their stuff and just hear stuff and just put little drops of this and this and this in and play with the sound. It's like clay, you just kind of mold it, and at the end, I go, wow, that sounds pretty cool to me. If I can do that and they go, wow, that sounds really good, then I think I've done my job.